Good morning, Miss Wilder's History Detectives. We are ready for another fun day of social studies. We are going to learn about the Native American cultural regions. So we've studied a lot about the different environments that Native Americans lived in, and we talked about how Native Americans would use every part of an animal. If they killed an animal like a buffalo, they would actually use the buffalo meat to sustain them for food. They would use the buffalo fur for blankets. They would use the buffalo hide to make those cool winter counts that you guys actually worked on creating on Friday, which was your own very own primary source because you were the one that lived through those events. Just like on their winter counts, they were the ones that lived through those events, those Sioux Native Americans. But they used everything in their environment. And those different items in their environment, whether they were animals that they used for food and different tools, or whether they were plants, trees, things like that, those are called their natural resources, things that occur in nature. And so, what I want you guys to really try to dig into and analyze as we study about these 7 cultural regions that Native Americans lived in the current U.S. is think about all the different natural resources that they had available to them in that area. Whatever natural resources they had, that determined the type of clothing that they wore. Their natural resources determined the artifacts and the tools that they made. Their natural resources determined the type of shelter that they lived in. So it's very important that this is the first side that you start with and you identify the tribes that are in that region first, some physical features that they had available there, what the climate was like, and then list those out, those natural resources. And then that's going to better help you to identify the type of shelter and what it was made from, as well as those items on the back, the clothing, artifacts, and tools. So where do you get this information? Well, you get it from your textbook. We're going to be using a variety of resources, but starting out, we're going to start with this good basic resource, your textbook. Now, your directions in Google Classroom told you to start reading on page 28, which looks like this, to analyze those drawings and then answer these questions here at the bottom to yourself. You're going to continue reading until you get to this page 37. So you're going to read, and it's going to provide you with a really solid background for these different Native American cultural regions. All right? Now, the first one that we're going to do together so that I can help walk you guys through this is the Northwest Coast. We just learned about several interesting facts about the Native Americans in the Northwest Coast. Who can, for a chance ticket, who can tell us several tribes that were located in the Northwest Coast? There are several tribes that were located in the Northwest Coast. Story. The Tlingit, yes. And what is another one? Chinooks, good. Good. Quacky-Utils. Go give yourself a chance ticket. Very good. So the Tlingits, the Chinooks, and the Quacky-Utils. So that's what you're going to write down for that first box. Now, just like I have, I'm kind of writing sideways, so my writing isn't as neat. I apologize. But I have to tell my brain to write small. I tend to want to write really large. So your boxes for each of these sections of information are pretty small. So you'll have to tell yourself to write small. Story knew from our reading when we built background knowledge that right here on page 30, it tells her some of the tribes. You want to try to list at least 3 tribes for each cultural region. Then we get into some more information about physical features that were available there. What physical features were available for the Northwest Coast? Daniel?
The Great Lakes.
Well, not the Great Lakes. We're on the Northwest Coast. So we're current day California, Oregon, where those states are located.
I keep getting my East and West mixed up everywhere.
Okay.
Forest. Lots of forest.
Okay, yes, there were lots of forests.
Mountains.
Yes, there were mountains.
And coast.
Yes, they were along, and what ocean was that?
The Pacific Ocean.
Very good. Go get a ticket, Daniel. They had forest, an ocean, streams, and mountains, like Daniel said. So they had an abundance of physical features, which then provided lots of natural resources. What was the climate like there? What did it say that the climate was like? Helen? And you can skim and scan in your book. What was the climate like? Remember, climate. Yes, mild climate. What were the winters like? Remember, climate is not just like the temperature or the weather for one day. It's over an extended period of time. What is the climate like in that region? So you're correct, Helen. They did have a mild climate. And then what were their winters and their summers like? You said something else about the rainfall. What did it say about the rainfall? Okay, mild climate, heavy rainfall. Go ahead and get a ticket. Heavy rainfall most of year. And because if they lived beside that ocean, they had cool winters and cool summers. I'm also going to upload a PDF version from the 8th grade book. I always like to challenge my 5th graders because I think if we challenge you many times, if I set the bar way up here, you tend to rise to that occasion instead of me just doing the basic stuff, and you learn even more. You're better prepared for that transition to junior high. So I'm going to scan in some of the pages that relate to these regions from the 8th grade book, and it will give you many more details to research some of these regions. Remember how I said this 5th grade book is just one of our basic resources. So I'm going to put that in Google Classroom so that you can actually read and pull from some of those sections as well. So if from the 5th grade book, you've done that reading, you don't have as many details, that's when I'm going to put in for NTI day number 2. You're going to go back and you're going to then add lots more details, okay, from your 8th grade knowledge. All right, what are some of the natural resources that it talks about having in this region? Michael?
They talk about they made wooden boxes for food storage.
Okay. Read me the sentence that you found that evidence.
American Indians living near the forest for the Northwest Coast made wooden boxes for food storage.
Okay. Yes, they would sometimes use those things What else did they use, Michael? What else did they have for, if you're thinking about natural resources, what did they use to make those boxes?
Um,
What did they use? What? Okay, what type of trees?
oh, willow. Right?
Yes, perfect. That's what I wanted you to get at. So they would use cedar bark, and willow trees. And tell me at least one or two other natural resources that they would use, Michael, to make different items. Like, what animals did they have available so that they could use those animals for food? It lists quite a few different natural resources they had on page 30.
They had deer, elk, mountain goats, bears, and wolves.
There you go, buddy. Go ahead and give yourself a ticket. So they had deer, whales from the ocean, they had elk, bears, and beaver. So they had an abundance of natural resources. What was their shelter like? What did it talk about and say about their shelter? What did it look like? And then what natural resource did they use to make that? They talked about it right there on page 30. Kate?
They said that they used like scam ornaments for the moose and stuff, and that they skinned them so it would be the same. And then
Where did they get the materials to build these huge wooden structures, Kate?
trees,
Yes, the trees. And what type of trees did it say that they had?
um,
And this is where this reading note sheet really helps you, because you could even go back and skim and scan to see what natural resources we have already taken notes for that were available in this area. Yes, go give yourself a ticket. They had cedar longhouses for their shelter. Shelter is just another word for house. Cedar longhouses made from cedar trees. All right, and then we're ready for the back side. So if you notice, don't get confused, we're not going straight across in a row. We're actually going down the column. So you're going to go down the first column to make sure that you describe all of these elements of culture. And then on the back side, let's finish up with talking about their clothing and then the artifacts and tool. So what does it say about their clothing? Chance?
those made cedar bark.
Yeah, exactly. Give yourself a ticket. Good job, sweetie. So they wove strips. They wove strips of cedar bark. They would soften it up, and they wove that cedar bark into waterproof capes. And why do you think, let's think about this, why would that be helpful for the environment that they lived in? This is always important every time you're taking notes. Be asking yourself this question. That's what detectives do. They constantly try to analyze evidence and information that they're gathering and make sense of it and try to determine why that would make sense for this situation. Why would waterproof clothing be so beneficial for this environment? Why do you think? I guess I've called on everyone, so we'll go back to Daniel.
They live on the seashore, correct?
Isn't that what we took notes on? Yes, absolutely.
Since they were boating out there, it's really easy to fall. So you get to have waterproof clothing.
Well, it's not going to keep you completely dry if you fall in the ocean.
But it does make you more dry.
Well, maybe a scuba diving suit would make you more dry, but the cape really wouldn't protect you like that. Why do you think it would protect you in this region, Michael?
Because they have a wet climate.
Very good. Go give yourself 2 chance tickets. We remember at the beginning we learned, Helen told us about this climate having heavy rainfall. And so because they had such heavy rainfall, that rain coming down from the sky, it would help to keep their body shielded from all that moisture, and it would kind of repel the rain off and keep them dry. So that was very important. What about artifacts and tools? So this could be, a tool is something that you use to make a job easier. So we're looking and thinking about what we've read. What type of tools or artifacts would they have had in this region? Hadley. Yes. So they used the soft, women would cut strips from soft inner bark of trees and use them to make baskets, ropes, like Hadley said, mats, and blankets. Very good, sweetie. Go give yourself a ticket. So they would use these to make baskets, mats, ropes, and blankets. All right. Does this make sense? Do we understand how we're getting our knowledge as a detective, a history detective, how we're building our knowledge, discovering clues, finding evidence for what the Native Americans were like in each of these cultural regions? Does that make sense? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Any questions about this before I give you another reason why this is important for us to take really good notes? Any questions before I try to help this make sense for you with what you're going to do in the future and how you're going to benefit from taking really good notes? Michael?
With this, can we just copy down your answers or should we make our own?
You can copy down my answers to get you started for this first one. Absolutely, because you guys came up with these answers. And students at home who are watching this video, you can do the same thing as well, as long as you have already read these pages to build the background knowledge on your own. Now, the reason why it's going to be so important to have a completed reading note sheet front and back for all 7 regions at the end of this week is on Thursday, you're going to take a picture of this and submit it into your NTI Day number 2 assignment post. But on Friday, you are actually going to be working with a few students in your class to create a collaborative project using Google Slides, where you take all the good information that you have gathered from your reading notes research, and you are going to create a presentation, a project that you're going to share with the rest of your class. So it is so important, boys and girls, to make sure that you're taking really good detailed notes. Don't just write down 1 or 2 items for each of these sections. Make sure that you have really good details. It's also going to come in handy for a project we're going to do for the following week. So everything we do in social studies as history detectives, it always builds on previous knowledge. So don't ever try to skip one step or another, because then it's going to make it much more difficult and even frustrating at times for you guys to complete projects and assignments down the road. Always give 100%, and that's all I'm asking. If you give 100%, you're going to be an amazing social studies student. Okay? Good luck, guys. I cannot wait to see your completed reading notes on Wednesday for gold students, Wednesday and Thursday. Thanks, guys.